Thank you, Angel, and Heidi ho, everyone. Welcome aboard. It is Monday. Hang on, just shovel or unshovel, dishevel. It's the opposite, unshovel. Myself, welcome aboard. It's Monday, the 28th of June. For many people, that means it's 2 days before the end of the financial year, myself included. And of course, it is 2 days before the end of the month, regardless of whether it's the end of your financial year or not. What does that mean to the markets today? Well, we'll investigate that as the show goes on. But first, let's have a look at the pound US dollar and see if we're going to trade the breakout for the open of London session. And then we'll go through the trades that we're already in and update you on those. Pound looks to be breaking out of today's range as we speak, not for the first time. It's having a little bit of a rally on the short-term time frames. This is the hourly, of course, which is where we trade our breakout. Just seeing if this is reasonable for the last 48 hours of trading. That, of course, includes Friday and today thus far. I don't think it's that bad, frankly, for a breakout. We might even consider that. Now, those of you who are here for the first time, welcome to you first of all, but please be warned that when we're trading this breakout, it is in beta test mode, and we are not advocating that this is a trading system that works, but historically, there have been many people around the world who've traded this over the eons in different guises, of course, and in different trade management forms. This is one of them. That basically Ash and I have been procrastinating over for some time. And at this point, we have decided that this is the best way to travel. So we identify the high and low of the range, number one. And the range is just for the past 2 trading days, including today. And today that range is there and, of course, there. So we put our entry 5 pips above the high of the range and our stop loss 3 pips below the low of the range, and we do exactly the same for the reverse. So in other words, we're trading a long and or a short at the same time. If the long triggers, we cancel the short and vice versa. So here we go. 5 pips above this level will bring us in at 1.3944. So that will be my entry for the long. And again, please don't put any meaningful money on this, guys. It is not a proven system. 1.3944. 1.3944. That didn't work. That's interesting. 3944 and stop loss is below there at 1.3865. Okay, so they're the parameters for the breakout trade today. So we just reverse that for the short. Pound looks to be on fire early or prior to London session. We'll see how that pans out. Now at a resistance level, there's a trade line coming through here. The short, let's go with that. It becomes a sell stop, of course. And we don't want that much money on. That'll do. It is a sell stop, as I said. And the parameters were 1.3865. I have to stop using red as a horizontal level. It's horrible. And 1.3944, if I'm not mistaken. There we go. And if yep, that looks good. All right, there you go. They are the parameters around which we are trading the pound US dollar breakout for today. I'll put that on the screen so there's no mistaking. It's got the makings of a very slow start to the week, I've got to say. Buy at 1.3944. Stop loss 1.3865. Rightio, and of course, vice versa. I better put that up there to save confusion, had I not. So sell at 1.3865 and stop loss on that 1.3944. Now take profit levels. Let's talk about those before we move on. Okay, first take profit has to be the first real resistance area. For me today, that's going to be DR2 or the horizontal level. Now that's going to necessitate a very, very odds-on scenario here. Do we want to take that? DR2 is 18 pips. Our risk is 69. Does that sound good to you on risk to reward? It doesn't to me. On the bottom side, we've got 69 pips risk and our reward would be DS2, 37. That's still not real flash. That's not a go for me. I'm going to cancel the trade size. Sorry, guys, I shouldn't have led you into that because that's where I need to take the profits, and it just won't work. Sell stop. Why won't it go there? Do it. There you go. All right. Now that I've completely wasted the last 5 minutes and give you my apologies for that, I'm going to get rid of that. But it does give you an idea as to what we're trying to achieve here. I don't mind trading odds on. And what I mean by that is less reward to risk. But it has to be reasonable, you know, something like 3/4 to 1 would be okay. It's got to be better than 1/2 to 1 for me, really. Otherwise, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Your strike rate has to be absolutely phenomenal, you know, up in the 80% mark to actually make any money out of that. So we'll bypass it. Right, let's update trades that we're in. And of course, we will be, as soon as Ash joins me, well, not as soon as Ash joins me, but before we close the show today, we will be going through the weekly trade that we, between us, that is Ash's fundamentals and my technicals, decide is a good way to go for the week. Now, last week, let's update that. It was pound yen. That's still in the market, but not looking that flash. It's just below halfway between here and hell. That is entry and stop loss. Look, I'm okay to hang on to this, and I don't have any problems with it. Really, we've been deeper into this than I would like to see, of course. But primarily, you're still getting a sequence of lower high, lower low, lower high, lower. Sorry. Lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. So we're still in search of a lower low, of course. That would suit us down to the ground because, as you can see, we were taken into the trade, I think on that candle, actually. And we've always been on the wrong side of this. Sadly, I'll blame Ash. It was his fundamentals that actually got us into this. So he's just joined us in the room. So I'll say good day to him. But that was last week's weekly trade, and it was based on this candle here, really, at the end of the day. I know this candle here at the end of the day. And of course, you're going to expect a retracement on that. And that was the option. That's where we got into the trade, if you'll recall. We haven't got into the trade on the low side, but we did on the high side. It was a limit entry order on the weekly pivot, which is here somewhere. But it decided that the monthly pivot was the one that it wanted to reject. And at this point, look, I'm still okay with it. If we got to close above the monthly pivot, I would be less inclined to be buoyant on it. But at this point in time, I'm still okay with it because the current trend is down. But that's debatable also. We shall see what we shall see. Still, the setup was there, and we will go through the new weekly trade very, very shortly. Before we go any further, I'll just update you on the trades that we are still in. Euro Swissy, we are still in, having taken profit. Stops are at entry, and we've traded this in both directions. Remember, we traded the short, got profit out of the short. We put a hedge in at the long above this bar here, and we almost got a TP2, which was at monthly pivot here. Some of you probably did that. As I said, my stops are now at entry, and if this goes long, then we've done very well out of it. I really think I'll be getting most of this trade off the table here. I've got a key reversal bar this week that says we should be trading it short, frankly, and we'll have a look at that when I do my analysis a little bit later as well. So it's as the market would suggest, and as those candles would suggest, a very much up and down equation. Look, I think the market holus bolus is pretty much in that frame of mind anyway. It's not terribly sure where it's going after we saw, of course, the Fed statement, the reaction to the Fed statement, the reaction to the reaction of the Fed statement, and now we're in really a land that nobody, I think, knows the answer to, frankly. We may hear more. Not really expecting much to happen, to be honest, before Friday, which of course is NFE. And after that, I think we might settle down a little bit and maybe get a direction towards the end of next, or towards the beginning of next week, rather than this week. It might be just a little bit of a ho-hum week. We'll see. Anything can happen, of course. Other trades that we're in that we need to update, Euro Yen is one, I recall. Look, that's still going okay, but it is heading in the wrong direction. Why can't I see that trade? There it is. We've got our stops way up here, and I'm inclined to just take a little bit more profit. That, of course, was the entry. I'm inclined to take a little bit more profit on this. What's the weekly telling me? Yeah, it's very similar, of course, as you would expect, the pound yen. I want to see a little bit more price action, but I'm considering moving my stops to above the swing, just to lock a little bit more in. But then I think the monthly pivot's still protecting us. So it's towards the end of the month. Let's see what happens in the next day or so. Price action is not giving me any indication as to what next to do. Aussie, we're still in the Aussie as well. And the Aussie is, looking a little bit sus to me. Why? Well, because we've come back inside this range, and really from here, I'd be looking to trade this long, pardon me, from a technical viewpoint. In fact, I think all I would need to see is a reversal bar, and therefore a higher low inside this area. Off the weekly pivot would be superb if we got that, and I think I would add definitely I'd certainly cover the shorts, no question there, but I think I'd probably move my stop down to here, because I think it'd be on its way back to the top of the range if that were the case. We shall see, and we'll update that. The other two trades that we're in, Euro Swissy, no, we've been there, Pound Kiwi. Pound Kiwi, we're in on the monthly chart, and we're in a little bit of drawdown on that at the moment. I'm not concerned about that at this point, of course. We've got a very wide stop loss, and
I have a trade short on the FTSE if we want to take it.
Okay, mate. I'll pass over to you.
Pass over to me. I've got to get my screens sorted. I've just remembered I can take it, but if anybody can take it at market price, you got stops 20 pips above. Entry here, stops 20 pips above. Now I'm going to see if I can get this on your screens ASAP. But I only just remembered how I did this before. Come over here, you. Oh no.
Sound like you're talking to your girlfriend. Come over here, you.
So I've got a whole new setup that I've had to employ here, because my PC, I thought my screens were damaged. My screens were damaged, but then when I took them out my PC and put them in my laptop, they worked. So now I've flipped to my laptop, but I've also got my PC running. So I've got two, would it be
Sounds like you've got
mice or
a
mouses?
cable
I've got
issue.
two mouses next to each other that I've got to try and control. Okay, here we go. This should be all right. There we go. Okay, so let me share screen.
Hi SF. Hi Lewis. Hello
thing.
everybody who was in the room.
This should be that. Right, how are we doing there? We see my screen?
We've got your FTSE 15-minute chart up.
Fantastic. Okay, well, why have I lost something here? Gosh. There we go. Right. So I have gone short, and you can see sort of like where the short is in play here. Here we go. So I've gone short here. You want to put the stops up here. So 71.31 is the stop. Now I've gone short right on the level there. So let's just have a quick look at where we're aiming. We don't like this background, do we? I don't like the background either. So I'm going to change that. Of course, I'll need to I haven't done a very good job here, mate. There we go. Right, so hopefully we can see that relatively clearly. So here's the short is right on the level. Effectively, you can see hopefully the reason why we've broken down this particular zone here. There is a trend line. Now I'm going to tidy this trend line up a little bit. You can see that there's this little this little false break here, and there's definitely a question of whether this trend line is the one in play. So we might not be playing the trend line, but what I'm really interested in is, and I suppose it kind of fits my narrative, so that's why I've left it there. But what I'm really interested in is the horizontal level. So you can see here, this horizontal level here is the point of interest, and it is rejecting this point. Now we started this morning really negative, and I was looking at it. I was thinking, I just want to get in. Really, I just want to get into this trade shorts, but there wasn't the opportunity because the price was down here. You know, this is where we started the day. Now we just had a little boost up today. Well, just a little boost up a few moments ago. So that's why we've been given the opportunity to take the short. But it's this horizontal level, as I say. And when we drag this out a little bit and look at the different levels, you can see that there's just a few touches here on the daily. They're not very clear, but they touch from above and from below. So I think this is a pretty good line here. Now, this looks to me like first contact down here. So 70.82 on this one looks like around about the right point to come out of this. Now, let's just see what kind of room that gives us. Yeah, that gives us probably just about enough room. If that one's right. Now, there's a weekly pivot down here as well. And we'll try and get the pivots on the chart. Let's just have a look here. Yeah, that probably just about give us some room just to possibly put a little bit more onto this one if we chose to do that. But for right now, let's just go with the original. So the trade is in at 71.15. Target is going to be down here. Oh gosh, actually that target might be a little bit high, but let's see. Well, that is first contact. Let's see what that gives us. That's 70.95 with a stop at 71.33, I would say. 17 up. Yeah, so it's better than a one-to-one trade. So because it has bounced to, I think it could come a bit lower, and I think it actually could come all the way down here. But because I'm going for first contact, I'm just going to aim for this point here. So 70.95 is the target, mate. Entry at 71.12. I don't have a way to write on this screen because of the way that the writing screen is set up with a bigger system. But I'll tell you what I could do. Let me see if I can give it to you like this. So we got FTSE 100. Oh, sorry. What's it called? It's called the UK 100 here, isn't it? UK 100 short entry 71.15. Let's do it like that. Stop loss is 71.33. And the target, or take profit, let's call it TP, is 70.95. And that should be, let's put these in here, just so you can see that a bit easier. Make it nice and big. And that might be so big that we can't see it. Right, there you go. FTSE short, entry 71.15, stop loss at 71.33. So it's 18 pips, and the take profit is 70.95. So 20 pips profit is what we're looking for. And I quite like that. I quite like that. Now what I might do, where did that one go in? That's okay, actually. Just double check this. That looks all right. Yeah, I think that's okay. Just going to take one more position on my other account. There we go. Okay. So that is that, mate. Now, I suppose we probably should talk about the markets, but were you halfway through something? I'm always aware that when I come in with a trade, it does actually stop your flow.
That's okay. I was nearly there, but I probably should complete it because it's important that we do update the trades that we're in so everybody knows exactly what we're doing, or what I'm doing anyway.
Yeah,
so
sounds good.
I'll just pinch the screen back for a brief moment.
You do that. I will manage this a little bit better, and then
cool.
We'll be done.
And we'll wrap that up. Okay, so I think I got to, where did I get to? Pound Kiwi. Yeah, I was talking about pound Kiwi, right? So this is a monthly trade. So nothing's going to happen quickly here. We have been taken into the trade with this bar, of course, earlier in the month, but at this point in time, we are in a little bit of drawdown. As I said, I'm not concerned about that. I think this has still got an excellent prospect of going a fair distance, let's say, to here. And that's the whole premise of the trade, of course, is to get up to here. We don't want to get to here and turn around, but we will be taking profit at the level just to make sure in case it does go there, reverse off there, then we will be not penalized for being in that position. The only other two trades, I think I've covered Aussie dollar, Euro Swiss, Euro yen, pound yen I've mentioned, and now pound Kiwi. And the only one I haven't mentioned, I think, that we are still in is Euro CAD. Now, Euro CAD is, as those of you who have been in here for a while know, on a monthly chart, and we've been in this since the 14th of January. I don't know why I remember that date, but I do. And it's now the 28th of June. If this was costing us money by being in here, it'd be an issue for being in that long. But it's headed in the right direction. Everything looks good. And we are in positive swaps. So there's absolutely no reason to do anything here except what should go. Now, the only thing really to consider, in my humble, is do we need to lock in some more profit? I think now that the end of the month is nigh, I will consider that. And I would imagine that, well, I won't imagine, I can probably work it out if I really want to go that deep into it. But the monthly pivot, which is covered there by the candles, is very much in play here. It won't move that much. but it'll probably come down to here somewhere. I think if you are concerned about staying in the market for this length of time, then you could do one of two things. You could move your stop above this swing here, or you could move your stop above this swing here and bank some more profit. I'm really not that that way inclined, and the reason is because that's not why I got in the trade. I got in the trade to get the market down to here somewhere, and that's still another 1,800 pips away. So we banked twice on this. We can't lose. The stop loss is an entry. It's just a matter of whether you want to continue to bank what really is not a substantial amount now that we're in our third position, and the real money will come if it does go where we want and where we've forecast that it may go. So that's why I'm not doing anything here. I'll just give it as much room as it needs. If it comes back and takes my stop, so be it. And I know I'm being frivolous with the 700 pips that we're in profit, but the truth is we've made the money that is reasonable to expect the market to give you in a short term. And if the market is willing to give us more in the long term, then it's going to go down to here at some stage. I said Christmas time. I don't think I'll be too far out with that. In fact, we may even be here Christmas 2022 if we leave our stops where they are. But, you know, there's a whole lot can happen between now and then, of course. So they are the trade updates. We've got two in drawdown. I'm not worried about either at this point in time, but I would say this. Well, we've got what 1, 2, 3, 4 that are pretty good trades. The one that is really the only one that is of any concern at this point in time would be pound yen short, and I will make a decision on that given where we are at the current moment. If we get a close on the daily above the monthly pivots, I'll probably look at this and maybe take a little bit of poison, because I think if that's the case, we've got a little bit of an issue here, and this may well look to challenge these highs and therefore take our stop. Don't want to be in that position. We haven't got anything in the bank on this yet, so that would be my only concern is pound yen. If we do get a close below the weekly pivot in the next couple of days, happy days. I think we're on track, but it's in that position where there's really no decision to make until we've got a close either above the monthly pivot or below the weekly pivot. And look, to be honest, I'm not sure we're going to get either by the end of this week or before the end of this week, when the NFE statement will come out. And really, that's the only big highlight of the week as far as news is concerned that I can see. I think there's some PMI figures coming out on Thursday, but apart from that, she's going to be a pretty slow old week. As I said before, it's the end of the financial year for a lot of us, and certainly it's the end of the month. So that's kind of where I'm at, Ash. I'm sitting on my hands. I've got a few potential trades when you're ready, but let's shoot through things like COT and seasonality and all those things that we need to look at the beginning of the week / the end of the month, I suppose.
Yeah, which always makes it that little bit trickier, doesn't it? What are the position of traders going into the end of the month? Are they needing to take profit in this area? Are they looking to add positions in this area? And I suppose it depends on which particular asset they're looking at, for what they want to do with it. But COT is really, COT had a really interesting imbalance last week, where the dollar, certainly the difficulty always with COT is that the report comes out 3 days after the actual data is compiled effectively, because it's compiled Tuesday to Tuesday, and then the report comes out on Friday. So, you're already 3 days behind what is essentially lagging anyway, because you're looking at sort of Tuesday to Tuesday, which is the whole week. Now, if it was released on the Tuesday, then it'd be lagging because you've still got the previous 7 days worth of data, meeting at that one moment, but then you've got to wait another 3 days. So it does make it slightly more difficult to navigate the very incremental changes that happen from week to week. But they were quite significant this week. And the significant aspect was that we saw the dollar really weaken. There was a lot of longs being slashed in the dollar. And as I say, the difficulty is we don't know when that was. Was it at the highs? Was it somewhere on the travel to the highs? Was it on the lows? We don't know. But we need to assume that it probably was as the market popped. So the longs in the dollar kind of started to ease. The longs in the Aussie started to grow. So this is where we kind of get this disparity. And actually, there was a few other currencies where they started to grow. The seasonals, I think somebody mentioned, it might have been Lewis, but somebody mentioned that the seasonals, or Greg, somebody mentioned that the seasonals are a bit out of whack at the minute. And of course, you can always find seasonals that are in whack and are out of whack. It just depends on what you're looking at. But I do take the point that we're still kind of settling down into this new normal, where we had COVID destroying.
Or actually, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your thought process there, but are we though? It seems we've got a little bit of a sticky point now because this Delta bloody strain's causing havoc.
That was exactly the point I was going to make, mate. I was going to say that, when COVID first arrived, it was just it seemed to come from just out of the blue, and then just seemed to sweep everything so fast. But now we've got something which is more like a kind of like putting a frog in cold water and turning the heat up, where it's just bubbling away and bubbling away. Under the surface, but there's obviously concern, out there for people to do with this this variant as well. And what we're seeing in the UK, and the interesting that you brought up the pound yen, where I was looking at the fundamental data as well, and just to update everybody on the fundamental data, I've kind of got my list of the strongest to weakest currencies fundamentally. Aussie comes out on top. The Swissy comes out near the top as well. So if I was looking at a long this week, it would be out of the Aussie and the Swissy on the fundamental aspect. Now the pound is just in that kind of band of going a bit neutral. It's a sort of it's a neutral to buy zone with a pound with the fundamentals, because they've been pretty good. And then when we look at the yen's in the sell area. When we look at the fundamentals, and one of the reasons that I've kind of put the yen in the sell area is that we always associate the yen with risk on, and I've said this before, but one of the reasons, risk off. One of the reasons that we navigate towards the yen during turbulent times is because they tend to have good trade balances. They tend to be an area where the exports are much more positive than the imports. Now,
also with that, and I heard a really good description the other day, and I can't remember where it came from. It might have even been Julian, who offered that there's no incentive to keep yen by investors in Japan because there's no interest rates. There's nothing to invest in there that's going to give you a positive return. Your cash is no good, right? So therefore, they tend to invest in offshore products or assets. Now, whether when there's an issue, a la Fed announcement, whatever, and we smell danger in the air, then it's reasonable to expect that the Japanese will withdraw their funds or their investments from where they've been in the speculative arena, like stocks, etc., and bring them back to yen until such times as the problem dissipates. And that makes perfect sense, and that's why, or a reason, part of a reason, I would suggest, and I've not heard that descriptor before, and that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. Just on the trade balance aspect, the last print of trade balance was that Japan was down 174% lower than the previous read. So in this particular environment, we're not looking at the yen being, the Japan being a really good buoyant kind of exporting market. So the terrain is changing somewhat. Now, if we compare that to the other potential safe haven, which would be the Swissy, the Swissy's well up there. So if you wanted to kind of like take a risk on, risk off hedging kind of scenario, then trading the Aussie long and the Swissy long as well, but with something, looks to me like a pretty good play. And you may well find that they both go up. So you could be looking at Aussie long against the yen, and maybe the Swissy long against the Kiwi or something like that. And I think you could almost hedge out your risk in some respects. Hedge out that if it was a real big downdraft, because you've got your long Swissy. But by the same token, if there was a boost in sentiment, the Aussie would probably outstrip the yen anyway. So you're probably sort of like quite nicely hedged, and the Swissy will probably stay quite balanced. So there's almost a way to play this with a little bit of a nuance as well. And I don't know whether we maybe should try that, mate. While we're looking at this this weekly thing, maybe we could.
Well,
try,
I've actually got 3 that almost fit the bill.
Oh, brilliant! Okay,
and they're the only 3 I've got, and we'll go through that in a minute.
Okay, fantastic. But back to the UK. So back to this pound yen. Now, the difficult thing is this. So we've got this situation where the pound's fundamentals are good. They're decent. COT data actually is not very good. Seasonality is a little bit weak as well. But the most important and significant aspect that's going on right now, as you touched on, this Delta variant is proving to be very, very difficult for the UK to wrestle with. Now, I know it's the same for many countries, but we're getting ministers that are now making mistakes, and i.e. Matt Hancock, and being replaced. So there is people like now having losing their jobs, having their positions being cost as well. And we're meant to be opening the economy back up on the 21st of June. There's a possibility that actually gets pushed back again. I don't think it will, but one thing that Boris Johnson is really keen on doing is making sure that the opening the economy doesn't open, close, open, close, open, close. So he wants to be pretty comfortable that when he opens for good. So we are looking at a situation right now where this is in the balance, and this may well weaken the pound over the course of the coming days. Now, the other thing we need to touch on is the week ahead. So we have seen a pop in the dollar, and it's really, really significant and really critical that we understand what's going on in the United States. We've got this dot plot, which has changed. And if people don't understand the term dot plot, is just where they're plotting the dots of interest rate rises. So they put it on a graph, if you like. So it's the dot of where those interest rates might rise and fall. So the dot plot has changed, and we have heard rhetoric from Jerome Powell. I think change, but I take your view and I take Julian's view. So two people have probably heard a slightly different tone than I have. So that my opinion on this has to be taken with a pinch of salt. But my opinion is that I thought he was a lot more bullish than I've heard him for a while, and I also bring into play that this is Jerome Powell, who's usually quite dour and just a bit negative. But the fact that he
you were perfectly in tune with the market, because that's exactly what the market said at the time.
At the time it did. Now the question is, do we get follow through? Because this is a long-term story. And we're looking at the key thing that Jerome Powell touched on for me was the employment numbers, and the fact that the employment numbers from his perspective didn't need to be quite as buoyant as he really intimated they would have to be before. So it was effectively saying it will even itself out. So that means we're looking at those employment numbers really more closely than anything else at this stage. So this week we've got actually quite a few bits and pieces going on. We've got ISMs this week because we start the next month. We've got the closing of the month as well, and it really all kind of happens on Wednesday and Thursday. So where does that leave us? You know, if we've got Wednesday and Thursday really before we wait for to wait for, that leaves us in a potential hiatus between prices, you know, between price points, which I would have thought, mate, between now and Thursday is probably good slingshot time. Maybe after Wednesday, Thursday, we might start to get a bit of trending going on. Now, you know, that would suggest to me that this FTSE short that we've got on the market is probably okay, and maybe we shouldn't aim too low. I think it could come lower over the course of possibly the day or the next couple of days, but maybe we shouldn't get too overall and excited, because we could be in a bit of a range until we get significant data coming out, if nothing else surpasses it. So that's what we're looking at, mate. We're looking at really Wednesday and Thursday before we really get some idea of direction. That would suggest also that any retracement in the dollar, in my opinion, probably could be bought up before the Wednesday and Thursday. So that's where I'm at, and I don't know whether we want to put this trade on, or whether we should just get to the trades that you've got in the market and see if they qualify already.
Well, here's the three that were on my watch list. Euro Aussie was one. Reason. Well, these are all key reversals, right? This is really tricky from a
Euro Aussie short, mate.
Euro Aussie short.
Yeah, I like that.
So this candle here's a problematic, but that candle there was FOMC, right? That's what drove that. I've got no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Then, of course, as we all witnessed, and as I called it, the reaction to the reaction, was this, which wasn't an engulfing bar, but it is a key reversal bar. And the issue trading that last week, and that's why I didn't, was that you're trading straight into the bottom of the range and the monthly pivot. Now, I think this week that's this week. It makes it very, very difficult to trade on a weekly chart. But gee, there's some signals here. I've got 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians, or 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians sitting here. They are suggesting to me that this is going to break short out of this range. The other thing that's suggesting that is this little tweezer top sitting here as well.
Yeah.
So I think anything that looks like coming off a resistance level makes perfect sense to me. Euro Aussie short, but I just find it very, very difficult to say jump in now because of where the monthly pivot is.
Yeah,
and because we are,
you,
as you.
The other thing about the Aussie is that the unemployment rate is actually really healthy. The unemployment rate's coming down, isn't it? Quite rapidly. Actually, it's the best performer when it comes down to the unemployment and people getting back into work.
Yep.
So the Aussie looks pretty good. I suppose the Delta variant's putting people off, but I mean, we've been saying for a while, if the Aussie was to retrace, we'd want to get in, and I think that still stands.
Yeah, look, 100%. Don't have a problem with it in any way, shape, or form, but I just find it very, very difficult to trade this with 2 days left in the month and trading straight into that monthly pivot. It's really, really difficult.
Agreed. So we might be waiting actually 2 days left in the month. So this might not get triggered until Wednesday. So maybe we're looking at Wednesday for a possible trade with this one, but I'd agree with you. So we're going short Euro Aussie. That would fit. Yeah, that would be a nice hedge.
Yep. Pound Swissy, pretty much already there for a setup for me. But again, and this is crystal clear to me. This is a key reversal bar. This is a key reversal bar, doubling as a bearish engulfing bar. Didn't carry on with the job, went straight into range. And, we've been there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks. My God. As you suggested, the Swissy has got claims and the pound is question mark.
The pound
yes, economy is good.
Yeah.
Circumstances not so much.
Exactly.
But I see this, if nothing else, as a range trade, and you just were talking about that, as a range trade down to the bottom of this range, take some profit, get safe in the market, and then if it goes, it goes. Yeah. So I think out of everything that I'm looking at the moment, I think that's the most obvious. It's certainly the clearest to me.
Yeah, I really
trade
like
it down to here.
I really like that. I mean, the fact that you're able to get the Swissy, on the workbench, I think is great, because the Swissy is the one I'm edging towards, and one of the reasons I like the Swissy, in fact, the two reasons I like the Swissy is, firstly, the data is really quite buoyant. When we compare it to the others, the other majors, the Swiss data is pretty buoyant. But the other thing that I like about it is that it also acts as a risk-off hedge. If something does start to go wrong, so you've almost got a double hit right now from the Swissy, where if things are really good, Switzerland's still performing really well, so it's unlikely to collapse. And if things are bad, I would have thought that right now, I mean, the traditional view is to go to the yen, so that will probably have a boost. But I think that the Swissy is a much better place to put our money if things do start to kind of turn around. So the Swissy would be my number one currency at this point in time. The pound's a tricky one to trade.
Technically, I agree 100%.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this would be a great one, mate. I think this would be a good one. And actually, where this would be quite nice, you've gone pound. Oh, you'd be going pound short in both, wouldn't you? Which is the difficulty.
That's going to be the issue, because you're going to effectively double your risk, because we're already in a pound yen.
You do. What would be the likelihood of taking if the pound was to weaken? What would be the likelihood of the other trade getting to break even while this one triggers?
Yep, pretty good.
Okay, so that's an option, isn't it? That this one triggers in, and we almost switch positions from the pound yen into the pound Swissy. So we'd have to work out the percentage drop of the pound between the two of them to kind of get a relatively safe aggregate of what could happen.
Yeah, look, it'd be really close to that, I would imagine.
Yeah.
The other one, let's have a look at it before we actually make a decision, is Euro Swissy. Now, as you know, I was short this one, or this one, I can't remember which one I got short on. But then we bought it back when we saw this double cross on the weekly pivot. We bought it back here. We've since closed the short, having taken profit. It was a winning trade. The long is, to my mind, a question mark now. It's still okay. We can't lose on the trade. That's all safe. But this candle here is really question mark for me. And if you have a look at what in the recent past Euro Swissy has done technically, it's got below the monthly pivot. It's come back and rejected it. It's got below the monthly pivot. It's come back and rejected it. It's got below the monthly pivot here and come back and rejected it, but hasn't quite touched it. So it's not perfect, but by jingo, it is close to a key reversal for mine. The high is higher than the previous bar.
Yeah. And
it has closed on near its low. You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see an inside bar this week, and I reckon that'd be eminently tradable next week. It'll depend on what happens here, of course. And we are coming.
The euro, I've got it down as the weakest. I think it's just an absolute pig of a currency. It's just right now, it's just not there at all. It's got so many kind of underlying problems with the euro, and I can't see Christine Lagarde really being able to move. Never mind, sort of, what she's kind of suggesting is that they're not going to move, but I would probably sort of, if I was to have a meeting with her, I would say to her, how could you? I mean, how could you move? Europe is still really in a bit of a hole when it comes down to some of the fundamental data. But the euro and the yen are the two that I would want to be looking at selling if I was looking at it. And you saying about the euro Swissy short, I think would be a really good one too. I like the look of that.
Yeah, it's there. I've got no doubt about it. So I guess out of those two, is it the euro or the pound that we're going to trade against the Swissy?
Yeah, well, and this probably brings you back to what you're going to do with that pound yen, doesn't it? I mean, if the pound yen was cleared up, then that would be okay. The thing with the pound is that we are the situation starts to unfold negatively over COVID, then that probably will create the higher volatility and give us the better move. It's probably going to be more explosive. But in saying that, if it's going to happen in the UK, I don't see why it wouldn't happen in Europe as well. And the fundamentals actually are much weaker in Europe than they are the UK. So if we were going on probably what could be more immediate, then the pound looks better. But if we're looking at something that might actually be more of a longer term situation, then I would have thought the euro still looks in a bit of a hole to me, where the UK is climbing itself out.
All right. Now, before we do make a decision on either of those, let's now go with your theory on the strongest currency appears to be the Aussie.
Yeah.
The weakest currency appears to be either the yen or what was the other one you mentioned?
Yeah. So the two strongest is probably the Aussie and the Swissy, and the weakest are the yen and the euro.
The euro. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look at Aussie euro and Aussie yen, shall we?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Or euro Aussie and Aussie yen. There's Aussie yen. Now, both of us had a longer term view that Aussie yen was a sell, and this creates an interesting point and bone of contention. It hasn't played out.
No.
And generally, when that's the case, if it hasn't played out, then something else is going on. And that's something else. And I mean, this was really obvious a long time ago, but it is the dominant chart pattern. I'm on a weekly chart here. The monthly chart's no different. This is the dominant pattern. You know, we've really got a double bottom sitting here. We've got an inverted head and shoulders sitting here. The only problem I have with that is it never came back to touch the neckline.
Yeah. Yeah, that is problematic. I agree with you. I would agree with you, and that's the problem. When I look at the Aussie yen chart, the price looks suspended in thin air, and that's the concerning part about it. But when you kind of consider the fundamental aspects, you've got to still be Aussie yen long. Tentatively, though, maybe that's the thing, isn't it? Maybe that the longs coming into on longer term timeframes are going to be a bit trickier.
I don't think we've got a great technical setup there at the moment, really, to be honest. So I'm probably not going with that from my technical stance.
Yeah.
So let's go with Euro Aussie. I think I've got a Euro Aussie chart here somewhere. Yes, I do. And, you know, that looks far better to me. Do we speak about this already?
Yes, we did, because on your shorts on. Oh, yes, we did. But you're talking about the monthly pivot being too close, weren't we?
Right. Yes. Okay.
What's the Swiss yen look like?
I've got one of those. No, I don't. Yeah, that's the key reversal bar to the high side.
Okay,
so that's a buy.
Look, it's a buy. Perfect. That's what we want.
That is a buy. Yes, you can buy. It's got a similar problem to what was it? Euro Aussie.
Yeah,
because you do have the monthly pivot there, but you won't have it there on Wednesday. On Thursday, rather.
Well, this is the thing, mate. I wonder when we were looking at that pound yen last week. I wonder whether the timing was the problem. I think that we probably didn't wait enough for what we needed for it to happen, because we took that limit order, and that's not really the way you trade. So maybe the timing was an issue there.
That's true.
So maybe we do need to be just a bit more disciplined on making sure that both aspects of what we're trying to do meet. So
well, it's interesting because the trade that I did take, we took two trades, if you recall.
Yes.
One was the limit order,
Yes.
or two orders, and the other was my system, and my system hasn't triggered yet.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
It
Yeah,
may
that is.
well.
Yeah. So let's come out of a limit order then. That was a silly idea, I think, and I hold my hands up to that one.
Look, I think there's absolutely room for both, and I've been yearning for years to actually try to get the risk factor that is inherent, or the safety factor that is inherent in the way I enter the market,
Yeah.
versus the reward factor, which is inherent in that a limit order, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah.
How the heck do you combine those and get them together somehow? And I've never been able to work it out, frankly.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
can't. At the end of the day, risk is rewarded with reward, and safety is rewarded with safety at the end of the day. The more you risk, the more you're likely to earn. It'll just be less in terms of frequency.
Yeah.
And there's no trade-off there. The financial world works on that principle.
Yes. There is one way around it, mate, which I will maybe go into another time, because I think that there's I think that there's possibly some validity in entering in both ways, and still taking the risk down, taking your risk down. So
Okay.
maybe we'll talk about that maybe later in the week.
We'll spend a session on that one day.
Yeah, there is a way to do it, and actually, it would fit your system. It's almost would be matching our two systems of entry quite nicely, I think. So anyway, we are basically saying that the Swissy yen is on our watch list, and we're saying that the Euro Aussie's on our watch list, but we are going to maybe wait until the month closes.
I think that's wise. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if we get a massive move in the market in the meantime. I'd be very surprised.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Well,
Doesn't mean
I don't see any comments or questions in the chat box, and I don't know whether it's because mine isn't working or whether we just haven't got any.
I do have something on YouTube from SF. Have a tough on EuroCAD. Tough. Does that mean a touch on EuroCAD? SF? I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Let me go and have a look at the chart again. EuroCAD. Have a touch. Don't see it. Maybe. Okay. If I can bring this trade line down to there, maybe. Oh, thought. Oh, did I have a thought on EuroCAD? Was that before I started talking about it or not? What to do now? Okay, let's go and have a look at the now rather than the monthly. Wow. I haven't had a look at this chart for ages, of course. That's the daily. And wow. Gee, it's tough to make anything out of that. Let's put a box around it to start with. Now, for those of you who want to know how I make boxes, I look for two equal highs and two equal lows. There's two equal highs. I'd certainly use those. Two equal lows, yeah, probably in this vicinity. Now, they can be opens and closes. They can be highs. They can be lows. They can be whatever you want. But as long as they make sense. In fact, I'd probably use the open close here because that makes more sense to me than the highs. And it tells you a story. And the story is this. They tried, they failed. They tried, they failed. They tried, they failed. They tried, they failed. And when that happens, generally you're going to find that the market will go back to the bottom of the range or close enough to in these cases. And that's exactly what I count on. That's exactly how I trade ranges. If we get out of them and come back into them, a higher low takes me to the top. If we get out of it and come back into them, a lower high takes me to the bottom, or they're close there too. Eventually you get there, right? But this generally happens more frequently than has happened in this range. That said, we are now towards the bottom of the range, and I'd be looking most definitely, if we were to break out of the range and come back into it, to trade it back to here. and then do the reverse until it breaks. And that's exactly how I work. That's how I run and ramble. So at the moment, it's pretty tough to give you a short-term opinion on what I think will happen next. Why? Because we're very near to the bottom of the range, but we're not at it. And that's why it's a little bit difficult. Now, if you want to go to the nth degree and trade this on a smaller time frame, you can make a small range in here without too much effort, I would have thought. I'm not doing that currently because I'm not spending a lot of time in front of the charts, but I can certainly see a couple of highs here that make sense and a couple of lows here that make sense. So a range within a range is not beyond the realms of possibility. And again, when you get out of it, you look for a higher low and trade it. When you come back into it, you look for a lower high and trade it, higher low and trade it. Back in, you look for a lower high and trade it, wasn't there. Back in, look for a higher low and trade it. Too big, can't trade it. And then eventually you do get one, right? And of course, when you're changing time frames, it can happen on an hourly, happen on a 30-minute. So what I would need to see here, SF, to actually trade this would be one of two things. Back inside this range in a higher low, then I can look to trade it, taking profit at the pivots to the top of that range. And then I'd look to scale or get out of it completely. And the process just continues on and on and on and on and on, doing exactly the same thing every single time it does it. Off the bottom, higher low, off the top, lower high, outside, same thing, back in, lower high, outside, back in, higher low. There's really no simpler way to do it than that. And that's what I do day in, day out. If there's a market structure in place, it can be a rectangle, it can be a triangle, it can be Lewis, Q Lewis. That's exactly why I do what I do. And Lewis knows exactly what I'm talking about. And I'll bet he's going to put something like I won't preempt what he's going to put in there, but I'll bet he does put it in there. So there you go. Can I trade at the moment? Answer no, because I haven't got any of those criteria available to me at this point in time. If I'm trading that strategy, if I'm trading another strategy known as the key reversal method, then I have a key reversal bar there last week. Would I trade it at this level? Well, it's tough because you're trading straight into support, that being the trade line. In fact, it's a trend line too, I think. So that makes it difficult. But a lower high, say, off the monthly pivot makes it possible because you've then got room to take profit. So there's, a couple of different strategies there. At the moment, you're in a range. I would suggest that you range trade it until it doesn't be in a range. That would be my suggestion. And certainly towards the end of the month, I think that's probably, as Ash said before, that's probably the wise thing to do. Look to range trade until such times as you've got a momentum breaker. And that could well be an FE on Friday. Or it could be a PMI number. It could be COVID. We're in that sort of season, aren't we? Where COVID, all sorts of things can move the market. But if one of those circumstances doesn't present itself, then I'd be looking to range trade that. Hope that helps, SF.
Lexi, yeah, that definitely fits our hunting dog personalities, doesn't it? The FTSE. Just on that, actually, just as we close the hour, it might be wise to move stops to break even or close the trade at the profit that you've got now. It's I'll leave that to everybody else's discretion, but the trade is a winner if you close it here. If you close it, if you wait and just put your stops at break even, it's something that can't lose. So the FTSE trade will be a success this morning, either way, depending on your take on it and how you want to manage it. But we always like to start the week with something that makes people a bit of money. So maybe it's more of a Monday trade, mate. I think it seems to be almost better on a Monday.
Could be. Yeah, I'm going to say you very rarely have a bad start to the week on a Monday versus me, who generally doesn't trade at all on a Monday.
Yeah. So maybe I'll pass the baton to you tomorrow.
Tomorrow, second last day of the month. Good on you, mate.
Yeah. Okay, so we probably
we could easily revisit things like EuroCAD tomorrow and see if we can identify that, because it is a range, it's a clear range. And if we do go through the bottom and come back into it, like we have here, right, on the smaller range, then absolutely this time tomorrow we could be looking at a higher low in here. And there's a beautiful trade up to the pivots. Happy days.
Okay, so FTSE, I'm taking it. Do you know what? It's got within a pip and a half of profit. So that's a closeout for me, and purely because the hour's just finished. It's not a because remember it was slightly better than a 1-to-1. So we basically sort of like managed to get a 1-to-1 on that. So a nice even money trade there. And we may well see a bounce back. I'm not saying that bounce back will be of any significance, but it might be a bounce back that closes out the break even at least. So I'm going to close it out here. And one of the reasons as well is that I do think that we are maybe in a bit of a rangy kind of situation. Potentially, because we've got this news thing. I think the FTSE's got a chance to get down to the weekly pivot, which is another 20 pips away or so. So there may well be sort of like something else that shapes up later. There might be another trade, but for this particular one, we are going for first contact, and we are in that first contact area. So I'm quite keen just to kind of take profit where we are. So anyway, that's that, mate. That's that. We start the week with a winner, and we'll be back tomorrow to do it again and see if we can get another one. I will share the burden with you tomorrow as we are on the last day and see what we got.
We'll be fine, I'm sure. I don't have any issues with the last day of the month. If we're ranging, I think it's actually a good way to get into the market and get some very fast bucks, and I don't have a problem with that at all. So let's do it. So the weekly situation, guys, is that we do have 2 or 3 that we are quite keen to trade, but we are thinking very, very seriously about waiting till Thursday to get into them, and I think that's a very, very wise thing to do.
Fantastic.
And I think unless there's any other questions, we might rack off.
I think we might. Yeah, we might. I don't think there are any other questions. We're pretty quiet today. I guess maybe everybody's busy, and I appreciate that sometimes people just want this on in the background. It's which is still a compliment, mate. It's like we're the buddies are in the room without being too imposing. But maybe we're becoming more like Jazz FM.
Part of the family, I think.
Yeah.
just ignore us in the corner.
Exactly. We still got each other, and Lexi. Anyway, and SF. We'll wrap it up, mate, and we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. Thank you, Angel, for looking after us. Thank you, mate, for being my trading buddy. Let's see if we can do it all again tomorrow, and see if we can get some of those ideas that we've got actually triggered into the market.
Yep. Happy days, mate. And to all, have a good week. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.